Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Okay. I can confirm we are actually recording this time.
Okay. Mad.
Yes, that was kind of sad that we have to redo this because I've finally pressed record again.
Again. Well, that's all right.
It wouldn't be a podcast with just us two if there weren't technical difficulties.
We have to have some sort of problem happen, otherwise it's just not right. It's tradition.
Yeah, that's true. As is tradition.
As is tradition.
So yeah, welcome to the Finally Press Record podcast. I'm Pat.
And I'm Stubby.
And we are flying duo.
Duo instead of the normal quadro.
As two of our key members are missing, and we have taken it upon ourselves to do what every quote-unquote influencer, YouTuber, podcaster who covers gaming.
This is a little presumptuous.
Be absolute shills and milk what is the ambiguous future of the Nintendo console.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure everyone's doing their own videos and podcasts on this,
So, Switch 2, Switch Pro,
2, Switcheroo.
the Nintendo Attach.
Like, okay, don't call it that. Look, let's just go straight to your idea for the name, because I know I don't have any better ideas than your one. Your one is great.
Well, I can't say it's my one because I feel like I came up with it, and in my mind I came up with it, but also so did a million other people online. And I will stand and die on the hill that if Nintendo do not name whatever their next console is the Super Nintendo Switch, their whole marketing team should just jump out of the 15th story window. Because yeah, I find it very interesting. If you look at the Wii and the Wii U, it would kind of indicate that Nintendo needs to not maintain the same naming convention. However, if basically all of technological history is anything to go by, if they just called it the Nintendo Switch 2, they'd be fine.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. The one thing I am honestly praying for is that they don't call it the new Nintendo Switch.
Good
like
Lord,
they did.
I hope those times are behind us.
Like, seriously, I really do hope they learnt from the new 3DS and new Mario Brothers, because, you know, those games came out in 2010, so they're not exactly new anymore.
Well, I suppose the one good thing about that was that Nintendo only ended up releasing a handful of games that would only work on the new Nintendo Switch. If you look at the Wii U, none of those worked on the Wii.
The new Nintendo 3DS.
Oh, sorry, yes.
I was thinking, hang on, where's he going with this?
If you look at the new Nintendo 3DS, I'm sorry, you know, they only released a couple of those, like, black label 3DS games that would only work, and it was, like, Xenoblade,
there was one of the Fire Emblem Warriors, I think it was. Was it Fire Emblem Warriors that came out on? And
then everything else just got a bit of a performance boost.
A little bit, yeah.
Like Hyrule Warriors, which I was very into at the time. Oh my god. But Nintendo, notoriously shit at marketing, unless it's a Legend of Zelda game. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
You know, wanting to make us cry.
Works.
Like, you look at the Wii U, worst fucking case of marketing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because everyone thought it was a Wii attachment. It wasn't.
Well, the thing is, for the first couple of months, they didn't show the console. They only showed the gamepad. So we didn't know that there was a console even attached to it at first.
Yeah, or even when they did start.
And then when they did show the console, it looked so similar to the Wii that it was like, so that's just a Wii.
Yeah, but even so, they were emphasizing so much the fact that A, gamepad, and B, your Wii remotes work with it.
Yeah.
Like, and so unless you were a actual gamer that kept up to date with the news, you had no fucking clue. And let's be honest, every person and their donkey had a Wii in their house.
And the majority of the market that the Wii really went for were for the people who weren't game savvy. Because the controls were, I don't have to worry about what button do I push. It's just, how do you swing a tennis racket? Like that? Oh, well then that's how you will play this game.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends who have cousins and stuff like that aren't necessarily the most world gaming versed, and their parents were like, oh my god, we got you the new Mario Kart 8 for Christmas. For the Wii. It never came out on the Wii.
No.
It only came out on the Wii U. Wii U games don't work on the Wii. But can you imagine being that kid at Christmas who wakes up and like, unwrap. Like, I'd heard about Mario Kart. I'm just looking at the shelf
World,
behind you.
Yeah.
3D World, Pokken Tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And look, anything worth its rice, pretty much except for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, which were remakes themselves, have now made their way to the Switch.
It's funny that it's true. I think there's literally only maybe 2 games left out of all of them that haven't been ported across now.
I do miss Nintendo Land a little bit. I really love the Wii U, but it's a console that died because Nintendo fucked up.
Well, yes, and I'd say Nintendo were 66% of it. The other 33%, though, was just the absolute stubbornness of developers at the time to make games that needed to be somewhat optimized for that console, because as much as the graphical processor, the GPU, as much as that is an absolute powerhouse, the CPU was from 1995 technology power PCs. So it was bottlenecked. It could make a really pretty picture. It just couldn't make it move.
So, based on that logic, does that mean the 1% were the PC Master Race that were... She
How
did
dare you.
66 and 33. What's the 1%?
How dare you?
What's the 1%?
The one,
Stubby?
you know what the 1% was? This guy. I'm pointing at myself, by the way.
And look, we're not really shitting on the Wii U. We both love the Wii U.
It is in my top 5 of consoles of all time.
You may have actually been there the day that I booted up Wind Waker HD for the first time, and I think I was a starry-eyed anime boy.
We all were.
was so fucking impressed, and then they never brought it to the Switch.
But it's still to this day looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
it is what it is.
I digress. We're not here to talk about the woes of the past. We're here to talk about the woes of the future.
Exactly. So I have an idea that Nintendo could probably do with this new one.
I feel like we need to put a disclaimer here before we start.
There is no...
Saying that at the point of recording, there is nothing confirmed, nothing but hearsay and rumor and quote-unquote leaks. So take everything with a grain of salt. Here we are just spitballing and saying...
Literally within the last 24 hours, Furukawa, the head of Nintendo, literally came out and said, we want to announce the Switch's successor by the end of this fiscal year of 2024, and our June presentation will not be talking about it. We will only be talking about Switch games that will be coming out in 2024.
Which is basically Nintendo's way of saying, hey, if you're going to cover out Nintendo Direct online publicly, don't shit on us for not announcing a new console.
Which I actually don't think they owe anyone that explanation, but they're just getting ahead of the curve.
No, but honestly, if you look at everyone's bingo card for the last year's worth of Switch presentations,
try last 2 or 3.
Yeah. And look, I'm in that camp. I'm like, I'm kind of disappointed we didn't see what's coming next. And a big part of that was because I only recently, and by recently I mean Tears of the Kingdom recently, which isn't, that new anymore.
Was it May
Actually, it was
last year?
about a year ago to this day.
Yeah, literally.
But I had only upgraded to a Switch OLED because my original Switch was dying and wanted death.
Yeah.
And look, I'm very happy with my current Switch. The screen on the Switch OLED is great. The performance is significantly better than what I was getting on my old Switch, which was a crash here and there. But we're at the point now where you're either seeing very well optimized games by people who know how to develop for the Switch, or rushed games that
I just
really were
copy paste.
Well, if rumors are to be believed.
Oh God!
I
hate rumors. So
yeah,
much.
I know, but if rumors and insider, speeches to be believed, the Switch successor dev kits have been out in the wild for a little while, and so a lot of people think that more recent games that have come out,
like Mortal Kombat.
Let's not talk about Mortal Kombat on the Switch. but they were designed with the new hardware in mind and then ported backwards to current gen. And the belief is that, much like we were talking about with the Nintendo 3DS, if you put them in the new console, if the new console is backwards compatible, you will get better performance, which we saw on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Whether Nintendo choose to follow in their footsteps, who knows, because they don't usually.
Like I said, I've got ideas. But
okay. So I guess tell me, what are your ideas, and what would you like to see in the new console, and what would you expect to see knowing Nintendo?
Okay, look, wish list. I think wish list we should do later. Okay. I just think I'm just throwing out here an option. I don't think it's the optimal one, but I think it's probably the easiest one for Nintendo to do if they want to be competitive this time around. Because the big buzzword at the moment is the handheld PCs. Whether you're talking the ROGs or the Neos or the Steam Decks, like, they're all the rage at the moment. So if they want to make a handheld that is going to be easy to develop for and at least somewhat current in capabilities and stuff like that, I think what they should do is basically items. Like 2 SKUs, essentially. So the main console at like $4.99, which is sort of the ceiling of where Nintendo puts their price tags for their new consoles. They don't really like to go too far above that, at least in Australia, I should say. In Australia, it's very rare that we ever have a Nintendo console.
Let's say $4.99 Australian, $2.99 US, or
so $3.50. Yeah, $3.50. Like,
$3.50 US,
right? And it's just the handheld. And the handheld has controllers fixed to it, so sort of like the Switch Lite, but it is a much higher end GPU and CPU, utilizing the new NVIDIA tech where they can upscale for very little expense to computing power and have a decent sized battery to it. So you've got the handheld console. You sell that on its own. So the people who are the ones who use it just as a handheld have that handheld option without having to pay for anything else. Then the other SKU is a dock with a Pro controller at about the $250 mark. And that will let you plug it into your TV, upscale, and maybe even have a small hard drive inside it. So any 4K textures that need to be added to the games to update it sort of thing can be just on the dock and not taking up the space on the actual handheld. And then you've got your Pro controller to play with it because it's on the TV.
So can I jump in here for a sec?
Of course, go for it.
So kind of iterating on that idea. Handheld, I think it still needs to have removable controllers. Because if they don't do removable controllers, they block out all of the Joy-Cons that they've sold in the past.
But this is the thing. It still can connect to Joy-Cons.
Okay, but not on the side.
So it's wireless. It's just they're not connected to it.
Okay. The second thing was, I like the idea of the modularity of it. I think that we're going to see a push for that moving forward. Xbox kind of started off the bat with proprietary, we kind of went back to, they call them expansion packs. They're glorified memory cards and they're much more expensive.
Yeah.
But, we've seen the PlayStation 5 with their latest SKUs now. You can get the disc-free version, but you can buy the disc as an attachment and it kind of modulars together. I think Nintendo could really play on that. And you could have, here is base console, here is Switch dock and Pro controller, or 3 SKUs, and you have Core, which is your handheld. You have Home, which is your dock.
Yep.
Right? And then you have Pro, which might be the dock and a Pro controller, but the dock, we have external GPUs and stuff like that. There are ways to leverage USB-C and Thunderbolt to amp up graphical processing power. So,
well, I mean, USB-C really has not been, touched to its fullest potential.
Not at all.
For pretty much anything.
But,
it's funny, actually, that.
But the other interesting thing is that for the sake of battery life and battery longevity, the current Switch OLED models are heavily undervolted. So even just in the current hardware, it could be so much more. It's been underclocked.
Yeah.
And so if they brought new hardware in, even with their conservative measures, and then just had it so that, like, maybe have an option in software to say, hey, I primarily play at home, which is me. Like, I very rarely play my Switch handheld unless I'm out with mates.
Yeah. I would say my ratio is probably 90% in dock.
Yeah,
10%
and that's
when
the
I'm
thing.
out and about.
Like, the Switch as a concept is fantastic. I like the idea of a hybrid console, home, and
I would find it hard to think of living without it now, to be completely honest.
But the difference is that when I'm playing it handheld, it's because my wife wants to watch something on the main TV, and I don't want to force her to sit and watch me play, Mario Brothers or
Tears of the Kingdom.
Let's not get me started on Zelda. Because my wife's a bit of a backseat gamer too, so sometimes I do it so I don't have to, why don't you go do that? Why don't you go do that? Anyway, I digress. But I think giving players the flexibility of both, but the option to pick a preference is something that, for a hybrid console, is kind of necessitated. Because, like, you can run Tears of the Kingdom at a lock 30 FPS if you just give it a little bit more juice.
It doesn't require that much. I mean,
you can run it at a lock 60 frames per second on the OLED hardware. It's just the game wasn't built for that, so it looks fucking ridiculous.
It does. Like, yeah, the modding community has really actually, like, found a lot of, like, why have they got it clocked so low? But I mean, Nintendo has always been that company that's like, we want the hardware to be reliable, and when you start clocking things to higher, like, frequencies and gigahertz and stuff like that, does start to kind of ruin the hardware a little bit over time, because formula numbers get dropped and stuff like that. It's one of the reasons why NASA didn't move on from 386s for God knows how long. Like, because
and a big reason behind it too is they don't just have one factory producing Switches, and so you kind of have to come up with a conservative benchmark that will be okay for all the hardware.
Yeah. It's got to be this complete landscape.
But there's also, if you look at it, the clocking benchmarks are the same for a standard Switch and an OLED Switch, and one of those is a bit more powerful than the other.
Just a bit, though.
And so it's purely, like, laziness as well. Like, they're just not putting in the time and effort to come up with a software method of...
See, now, I just thought of something. Sorry.
That's okay.
But the only thing that I think might make Nintendo not go along that line is because the Wii U did it. They had the basic and they had the Pro. They had the black one that had the higher hard drive, and it came with Nintendo Land, and then they had the basic, the white SKU as well. And so they might be thinking, oh man, we want to stay away from the Wii U as much as possible, even though they've taken its entire library and stuck it on the Switch, but that's another thing.
So my next question is, again, we're delving into the murky waters of rumors. One rumor that came out probably 5 or 6 months ago is that there could potentially be 2 SKUs where one would be backwards compatible and the other wouldn't.
Yeah.
And the one that's not would be cheaper, and the one that is would be more expensive because potentially the new Nintendo console will use a new medium for their software, and so the backwards compatibility one will have, kind of like the PS3, it'll have components from the Switch to allow backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I do think that one of the biggest problems that, especially third-party publishers face, is that the Switch cartridges are not cheap. So if they have a game that they don't necessarily think is going to be a massive hit, they may not want to fork out that much money, because pressing discs is like, what, 5 cents maximum?
It was
disc.
more expensive. It's gotten quite cheap.
Yeah. So, like, pressing discs is very, very... So, like, for example, 2K, perfect example. 2K, who have made very successful games on the Switch, have always only ever bought the 4 gigabyte cartridges. But their games are 24 gigabytes. So you have to then download 20 gigs just to play the game.
So, yeah, basically they're using the cartridge as DRM.
Essentially, yeah. Like, but the cartridge still has a little bit of the program on there, right? Not a lot, but...
Yeah, it has a launch screen.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, a launch screen and maybe the options menu.
It's a launch screen and a certificate of authenticity.
Yeah, there we go. See, perfect. That's exactly 4 gigs. So, for companies that would want to invest in making physical media for that console... The biggest one they ever made was 32 gigabytes, and that was for The Witcher 3. And the only reason why that exists is because Nintendo did the publishing themselves. So they didn't have, they made it. So technically they didn't have to pay for it. So, that is a bottleneck in the overall logistics. So those cartridges probably do actually, as much as I hate to say it, those cartridges may have to go.
So that leads me into my next question. We have... Look, there's not a lot of examples yet, but massive Game of the Year awards-winning game Alan Wake 2 forego a physical release.
Which absolutely kills me.
Right? And you're a big purveyor of physical media.
Absolutely.
Could you see Nintendo dropping
all
physical media?
I honestly don't see them dropping physical media. I don't think that Nintendo have a good enough grasp on the internet in general. If you've ever played a Nintendo game that's online or even has co-op, typically the Nintendo-made games don't fare that...
Yeah, no, look, I kind of agree with you. Like, they really have to get their infrastructure up to date if they want to go digital only. I don't see them going digital only.
I don't think they will on that.
I think that the cartridges are good in that they are more sturdy than a disc. So for a kid's console, right, making it taste disgusting and making it not break necessarily if you step on it, great choice. But yeah, I don't know. Like, do you think the Nintendo Switch successor will work if they keep our backwards compatibility?
I think it'd be a big kick in the teeth because we're talking about their number one selling console of all time now. It has outsold literally every console that has ever been made, except for the PS2. And it is fast approaching that number.
I got into a heated argument with someone who was like, the Wii U wasn't compatible with the Wii U games. And I'm like, cool. They've ported nearly all the fucking good ones to it.
But, I mean, also, we're talking about they merged their handheld and their home divisions to make the Switch. So, we kind of weren't really expecting them to, port over those extremely nice-feeling, weird proprietary Blu-ray discs that they made. And we weren't expecting them to have the 3DS cartridges because those things hold what is it? 256 megabytes or something?
Will we see,
they're not big.
Like a unforeseen, hidden union of Sony and Nintendo from the days of yore and give birth to a new UMD?
Oh, it would be the Antichrist of gaming is what it would be. All the loading and none of the space. Congratulations.
So we've spoken about kind of what could happen. I have 2 questions for you, and then I will answer them myself.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like in the Switch successor? And what do you think would be a successful launch game? You can only have one.
Look, Prime 4. It's obviously going to be Metroid Prime 4. The game has been in development for so goddamn long, and after seeing what they did with Metroid Prime Remake, and that was touched up and all that kind of stuff, and runs gorgeously on the Switch, I might add. But if you're going to tell me that they haven't gone, hey Nintendo, okay, so we've maybe got a few years until this thing is actually finished, and this was, a few years ago when they said this. You got a few years until this thing is finished. What if we just upped everything and we kind of push this game a little bit further? How long until you've got new hardware? And Mr. Furukawa goes, look, we're going to be announcing in 2024. He's like, well, that's about the time when we're thinking about releasing. What if we just hold off on Prime 4 until release day for the next one. I think Prime 4 with a fully fledged multiplayer online, with a brand new online infrastructure made by, what was the company that Nintendo bought that
I don't remember.
DNA?
DNA?
Yeah, so they did all of Nintendo's mobile games, and like, I mean, I've played like Mario Run and I've played Mario Kart Tour. They are fantastic for mobile games. Like, let me clarify that. Like, you gotta like, have you played them at all?
Mario Kart Run, a lot of fun.
Mario Run.
Sorry, Mario Run.
Yeah.
Mario Kart Tour. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the microtransactions.
Well, I mean, no one's really a fan of the microtransactions.
Animal Crossing, I didn't really get into.
Did you play the Fire Emblem one at all? The one that's still up?
Because I didn't get into Fire Emblem that much.
You didn't get into Fire... Okay, that's going to be a whole...
No, I like Fire Emblem, don't get me wrong. I kind of fell by the wayside, and it was more than I was willing to put time into at the time.
Yeah.
I was hot and heavy for Persona 5.
And I mean, since Tomodachi Life, which was like their first one that I remember jumping onto and being addicted to, I've always found that their mobile and their online infrastructure for their mobile stuff is fantastic. And from what I understand, DNA have been the sole company behind that. But I haven't seen their logo on Smash or Mario Kart. So...
Okay, so DNA.
So I don't think DNA have actually had anything to do with their home console releases for multiplayer. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Capcom's is still the best because Monster Hunter plays amazingly online. I don't know how they managed to do that.
I think a big part of it is also local servers. It's not I am not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but if you look at MMOs, if you look at even Dragon Ball Fighters, which I've been playing a lot of lately, they have local servers in different points all over the world. I think Nintendo really needs to invest in that so that you have local caching, which will increase connection. Oh, well, it'll make for more stable connections and increase connection speeds. I don't know about Capcom. Maybe Capcom's got Oceania servers for us. Maybe that's why we had better luck with that compared to other games.
I mean, look, it's Monster Hunter. They would have Japanese servers. I don't know about Oceanic servers.
Yeah, but I mean, you could say the same about Nintendo, and we know that's not true.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
For me, and look, you've taken Metroid Prime 4, so I'll take that off the board. I will agree with a certain YouTuber that I think Nintendo really knocked it out the park with Breath of the Wild being its launch title. But considering how much the Switch has grown in terms of, like, you know, it's become like a quintessential home console. If they want to grab families in, I think the best way to do it would be to announce as a launch title a very overdue Nintendo Kart or Mario Kart 9 or 10 if you count Live Circuit as 9 as their launch title. I think Metroid Prime should be up there as well, and God, it's been in development long enough that it should be.
Yeah.
And look, if they want to score bonus points, fucking release Breath of the Wild HD or Breath of the Wild 4K.
Oh man, could you imagine? Wind Waker 4K.
Or announce that if you put your Breath of the Wild cartridge in, you get a graphics
update,
a next gen update,
like a fucking was it smart delivery that Xbox did?
Yeah, but like, could you imagine if we reach a day where Nintendo is doing like next gen updates to their games?
Oh. God, that would be such a strange timeline,
right? Because yeah, if I saw that, like, you know, president of Nintendo comes out and says, "Here is our Super Nintendo Switch." Name it the Super Nintendo Switch.
Please name it the Super Nintendo Switch.
Here's the Super Nintendo Switch. We're releasing in our lineup 1, 2, 3, 4 something. No one cares. ARMS 2. Mario Kart 9. Woo! Metroid Prime 4. Woo!
Metroid. I think Metroid would be the big screamer.
And if you put any Nintendo first party game into this new machine, it will come with a 4K next gen patch.
Whoa. Could you imagine like 4K frame rate boost on certain games?
Yeah, look, I would honestly, for most games, I'd probably be fine with 1080p. Right?
To be honest, like, and the funny thing is, I'm actually the other way. I am so okay with 30 frames a second. I actually tend to not like a lot of 60 frames games.
I'm okay with 60 frames games. I find it, when it's on a bigger TV, I find it less jarring. 60 frames a second. When I'm playing it handheld, I'm fully fine with 30. Maybe I'm just spoiled. Very first world problem here.
Mine's more genres. Like, fighting games, I need, like, 60 is absolute. But, like, for adventure games, like Tears of the Kingdom, I did not have a single
I have no
problem
issue with Tears of the Kingdom. I just want a stable 30 frames a second.
Yeah, stable would be nice.
Right? And I want to be able to play Pokemon without falling through the floor.
Yeah, but that's Game Freak. That's not Nintendo, that's Game Freak. I always like to make that distinction.
No, I know. I think, for me, 60 frames a second, the thing that I find really jarring is if you play Mario Kart. So, for example, Mario Kart 8 on the Switch, if you play it 1 or 2 player, it's 60 frames a second. If you do 3 or 4, it's 30.
Yeah,
and I find that really jarring to switch between the two.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we have our launch games. What would you want in a Switch successor?
See,
let's go one for one.
Okay, I would like a handheld that connects to a USB, almost like a Fire Stick. Not a USB, a HDMI stick that goes into your TV. And then you've got the handheld, has a touchscreen, and your TV is like a normal screen. And then you can port over all those 3DS games into glorious, like, HD graphics. You can get Wii U games. Like,
this is just your way of getting us to play Affordable Space Adventures HD.
I love Affordable Space Adventures so much. I really want a HD one.
If you have a Wii U and you, at this stage, you'd have to mod it if you don't already own it.
I can't explain how good that game is.
Affordable Space Adventures, we've had a lot of fun with.
Oh man, it's so good. And it's one of those games that you have to have some form of like a secondary screen off the TV. But I mean, you can also do it like with a lot of kind of board game kind of style games.
Basically you can port over anything that relied on the gamepad.
Yeah, and well, sadly that was everything.
Well, Nintendo Land.
But the thing is, because they didn't lean into the potential of the Wii U, you could definitely see that on a successor for the Switch. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, that's my ultimate wish list, is that the dock doesn't necessarily has to be like something that you set the actual console into, like that you can use the handheld console and can have connectivity to your TV.
I would argue I would like to see both. Because I think if you want it to be a party console, you emphasize that. Like the whole, like, when the Nintendo Switch was announced and we were all like jizzing everywhere and like having a great time.
Loving it.
One of the big things was, here's the Switch, kickstand out, here's your controller, let's fucking play. Right? How many times did you do that?
Many. Many.
You are in the minority, my friend.
I know I am. You know what? I even pulled it out in the middle of a pub and played 1-2 Switch with a friend.
Yeah, look, and that's the thing, right?
Everyone was crowding around going, what is this? This is so cool.
It's very
and we were just playing the draw game and shooting each other. It's just so cool, the idea. I know it is niche. I know it's
niche, but also everyone who did it, save for maybe you and people of your kind,
we smell our own.
Everyone did it at the start, and then the gimmick wore off, right?
Well, they stopped making games for it.
The times I use my kickstand is if, like, I'm on a plane and I set my Switch up, and that's kind of the display, so I'm not like looking down and right? I'm at least not destroying my neck, and I set it down. It's my little monitor. I've got my controls, and I play. But I am a giant with giant man's hands, and Joy-Cons are not practical. And
yeah, look, the Joy-Con is definitely, like, it's okay in a pinch, but I would never recommend anyone use those as separate controllers.
Not by themselves. Like, they're okay if you have one of those big things, but at that point...
like the split pad from Hori. But you can't use them off the Switch, though.
Yeah.
So you can only use it in handheld mode.
But I think if you had a portable dock, that would be good. Sorry, I thought you were...
No. It's still quite a ways away.
Okay. The thing that I would like, that I don't think we're going to get, is for Nintendo...
Well, this is wishlist, so it doesn't have to be in the realm
I know, but
logic.
I can justify why I don't think we're going to get it. I like the OLED screen. I am a bit of a snob when it comes to film and television and monitors, and OLED for me, once I'm playing on an OLED screen, I struggle to change.
So even though you play largely in a dock, you would want a more expensive screen?
I have an OLED TV.
Exactly.
Right. But that's the thing. The reason why I don't think we'll see it is because OLED screens are much more expensive, and particularly if we're getting an upscaled screen in the machine at some point, which, signs will indicate that will be the case.
Yeah, I do think that we won't be getting like a 720, we'll get a 1080 screen in there.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't. Is there higher than 1080? Like, I honestly don't know. So, is there higher than 1080 in that 8-inch size though? Like, sorry, like that.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. This is slightly tangential, but I do a lot of 3D printing. They have 3D printers that have screens about the size of the Switch.
Yeah.
That are 12K.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah. No.
Now those are typically black and white, but you can go like there's 1080p, there's 2K, there's 4K, so on, so and so on.
Yeah.
It's just going to be too expensive. Like if they want to have it at a marketable price. It's
like
not
actual consumer level anyway.
Yeah. The only way I could see them making it work is if they went with the multiple SKUs and they expected people to fork out for the core.
See, but that's why I was sort of thinking like they can release like that version in like the $4.99 for the handheld, and then they can kind of breach that $4.99 kind of ceiling that they typically want to have for a release for a console by... or even $5.99, they could breach that by selling the dock with a controller separate and then pushing it to like that $700, almost $800 kind of price point for a complete unit. Which, I mean, the PS5 is still going currently in Australia for $7.99 as standard retail. Right? And same with Xbox Series X. So, I mean, we're talking about consoles that are 4 years old now, and they have only had a price rise instead of a reduction.
Which is fucking ridiculous.
God diggity daffodils,
except
what the
for
hell?
Like the golden gem weeks that we have every so often where they drop $100 or something.
Like, the Black Friday sale, like kind of thing. But it's so weird.
But here's my question for you. As someone who works at...
frontline in the industry, yes.
Yeah, as a frontline worker.
As a frontline, as a real trooper in the trenches.
In the trenches, on the front line... crossing the dead man's land. Would having SKUs set up that way excite you as someone who has to deal with people buying them?
To be honest, having more SKUs makes it way easier to explain. Having one SKU and then having like to explain everything that's in that one SKU actually is harder to explain to people. It truly is.
Fair enough.
So when PlayStation did their digital and their disc version, the only confusion was, what do you mean there's a disc one? Don't they all have disc? Right? Very easy to explain the difference.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you have a SKU where you're like, oh, you don't want to pay for the dock? Cool. Here's one that doesn't have a dock. So therefore, you're not paying for a dock. You want the dock because you use it on the TV? This is the one with the dock. This is the one that you want. What's that? You're a diehard Nintendo fan ever since God knows how long, and you've bought all their consoles?
Hi, it's me.
Oh, wow, that really hit close to home. But yeah, then this is the one that you want because this one will give you this.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, just honestly, like that kind of spread of SKUs does make it easier to explain to people.
Fair enough. I think the next big thing for me, give me Hall effects switches. Fucking hell.
Look, The only reason why I think we didn't get something at least that fixed that problem with the Switch is because Hall effect switches in joysticks that small would be a thorough pain in the ass 7 years ago to make.
Yeah, but the Switch has been out for how long, and
7
the new
years.
Joy-Cons don't have them.
Yeah, so
Like,
and
we're
that also
rely-
kind of makes me think that they are planning to not using them in the next ones.
Yeah, look, the fact that we have been reliant on third parties to provide us with controllers that don't fuck up.
See that? Okay, my honest question though: how many Joy-Cons have you had that have actually really like drifted bad that haven't been fixed by trying the calibration?
I've had 3 Joy-Cons that have gotten drift. 2 of them were fixed with the calibration, but then got drift again and did not fix. And I tried everything. And I tried the WD-40. I tried disassembly.
I wouldn't do WD-40. That actually would.
No,
not
there's it's a anti-static can that you can get.
Okay.
That it's basically just straight up cleans it. I tried everything, and now I'm in the position where, because as much as I fucking love them, Sony also have not chosen to use Hall effect switches. 2 of my dual sensors have drift, and I know it's not calibration because I've used those. I use those dual sensors on other machines.
I can tell you, being in those trenches, in those front lines, the issue is unbelievably like pandemic levels of they truly didn't fucking try. And that's one of the things that really shits me on why I don't like PS5.
My conspiracy theory is that they did it so that people would buy the DualSense Edge.
But then they put normal switches in the replacement ones. So for $30, they are just literally an admission of guilt.
Either way, just give me Hall effect switch. And surely you would be saving money at that point, considering how many lawsuits and how many like repairs they've had to do on those controllers.
Well, this is I mean, it is a rampant thing. I mean, we didn't have this problem with PS3 or PS2 or PS1. Like, and to my recollection, the only stick drift I've ever had has been on a Logitech PS2 wireless controller that I had, and that's the only one I remember from from 7th gen.
The only
back.
thing I can think of, and again, we're getting into conspiracy theory territory here, is that
bring those tinfoil hats.
The DualSense and the Joy-Cons have 2 features that the Xbox doesn't. And that is
HD Rumble
/ advanced haptics and accelerometers, which doesn't excuse the PS3 and the PS4 because they had the accelerometer as well.
I was just gonna say 6-axis has had it,
Yeah.
so I mean, can't really count.
The
that
only
one
thing
in.
I can think of is that's the only thing.
But I mean, the thing is, like, Xbox ones, stick drift does happen, but it is a lot rarer to find than
but maybe it's how the controller is vibrating. Like,
yeah, I mean,
you'd be amazed at what a certain frequency of vibration can do to a person, let alone a controller.
Yeah, of course. But that's
Nothing sus. But
food for thought.
But I think the biggest takeaway that Nintendo should be taking from this is, hey, maybe we should use current technology.
Maybe. Like, okay, wait. You're saying that to Nintendo, who still haven't learnt to internet yet. So, I mean...
my point still stands.
They are using friend codes. They don't have lobbies.
My point still stands.
They went backwards when they had an online store that was quick and snappy and had fun music and was kind of awesome to be in, to the Switch. Enjoy your squares. Well, as much as I love the Switch, let's be honest, that OS is absolutely shit.
So yeah, maybe we should start wrapping this one up.
Yeah. So okay. So we've done our wish list. We've done our what we think they could possibly do. We've got a name. I mean, who from Nintendo is going to even be listening to this? But like, just please don't call it the new Switch. Jesus, please don't call it the new Switch.
Yeah, I think honestly, if they want it, like, the name is a big thing. Super Nintendo Switch will make the fan base go wild. But even just call it the Switch 2.
Yeah, I think
like,
just keep to simplicity. Like,
yeah, don't switch it up.
Like, I mean, you know, it works for PlayStation, and I mean, God, Xbox have one of the worst naming conventions ever, but people still understand it. Like, you know, even with calling a console the Xbox One, people still knew that there was a difference between the One and the OG. Like, so, you know, just, I don't know. All I can think of is just if Nintendo is actually scared of like a successor to the Switch actually failing, like the Wii U being the successor to the Wii failing, is just make sure that after your initial launch lineup that you have a steady release of games. Don't blow your load all at once, because the Wii U had all these games on day one. Granted, some of them were up to 3 years old, but they had like 20 odd games on launch. Like, it was huge.
But I honestly think if they leverage their back catalog and just make it so that, you know, if you've got Nintendo Switch Online, cool, you've got Switch Online on the next one, all of the games we've released on that, they're all available. You know, give us next-gen updates, give us, like, frame rate unlocks or resolution upscales for games that are on the Switch. You leverage that back catalog, and then you don't need to have 20 games at launch. You can have 5 good games at launch.
Yeah.
And still...
But honestly, the thing I think that really killed the Wii U was that after launch, it was almost 7-8 months until there was one brand new game. Like, it took ages, because Alien Colonial Marines got cancelled. Rayman Legends got moved back to September of the next year because they didn't want to release it outside of the PS3 and 360 launch because it'll cannibalize the sales. That was the whole idea of it being a Wii U. Anyway, Lego City got held back. The developers of Metro Last Light turned around and said the Wii U's the worst thing to program for because they're just scumbags. Don't shit on the console, man. It's just come out. Like, try and figure out what you're doing wrong. Like, optimize. Anyway, like, that was what I think honestly killed the Wii U.
Yeah, fair enough. The only other thing that I would really want out of next gen Nintendo, give me achievements. God, I've been screaming it to the masses. Make them pins. You came up with pins on the 3DS.
Pins, like call it pins.
And so much so that some developers just put the achievements in their game.
Or merits.
Yeah, just do it. Like, fuck, if you play Minecraft on the Switch, you unlock Xbox achievements. Just give us achievements. Anyway, that suffice to say, take anything with a grain of salt here or otherwise.
Because this is all conjecture.
Until there's an official announcement that isn't clickbait.
Which there will be plenty of before the end of this.
And there has been plenty for years.
5 reasons why the Nintendo Switch is out this year. Number 3 will surprise you.
Yeah. I have a Nintendo Switch Pro, and it's not what you think. Anyway, this is Pat and Stubby signing off.
Indeed. You have yourselves a good one.
Bye-bye.